show, man. I really like what you're doing, man.
I
It's like
appreciate it.
and also like just you're not only like discussing the film. A lot of the films are like controversial, cultural controversial films, which I think is dope, man.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. I really believe that these conversations that we have amongst ourselves as black men is important to put out there so that we can get that start getting that empathy that we look for, right? You know, or at least get more of it. You know, when you see the things that kind of go swirling around in our head and how and you know, and that's what I love about Judas, because I honestly I've had a couple of this older white female. I told her I couldn't wait to watch this movie, and then the night the movie came out, she sends me pictures of her and her husband going to watch it, and then afterwards she's like asking me all these questions. I'm like, see, that's what it's all about.
That's what it's about, man. You know, because like for so long, we've had this, especially black men, it's this fear to speak out because of what happened in the movie.
Right, you dig?
And it's like the same thing happened to Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, anyone who spoke out. So there's been a fear for us to say, okay, if anyone has quote unquote become the messiah or spoke out against, any injustice or what they're going through, we might die.
Yeah,
So,
man.
so it's like, but now, I mean, just, watching that movie alone, we've come a long way, you
Oh
know,
my gosh.
just to see what was actually happening at that time. Like we weren't able to in film, It's
Right.
like, yeah, this is, it's,
Hey, Philip. I got a surprise for you, player.
Here.
I knew
That was
it.
good.
I didn't tell
Motherfucking
Philip.
reunion out there. There we go. Hey.
I didn't even tell Philip. No, Phil. Pally, well, I don't know if you know, he can share if he wanted to, but he was busy this weekend, and I knew he was, so I didn't want to force him to come on, but when he said that he was down, I was like, oh, I gotta bring him on, man. This is gonna be a good one.
Yeah. So I'm excited, man. Especially when I heard that you were going to be on here, Phil. And I was like, this is definitely a reunion of of best friends. Of people who grew up together. And
Jags, man. This is 3 Jags is in the building right now, y'all. Right. Coach T. What up, Coach T? Yeah. What cool, guys. Well, what up, you guys? My name is Trei Hill, and this is the new Filmosophy. Man, these are my brothers from way back in the day, Germantown, Maryland. My man, Philip Butler. He is a professor, and you're going to tell me about the new school that you're at. I know you just left the West Coast, right? What school are you teaching at now?
Yeah, man, I'm in Olive School Theology. It's in Denver, Colorado, and it's -6 degrees right now. I just got finished shoveling the walk. This is ridiculous.
Whoa, man! I'm down in Hotlanta, man. It's February, and I was sweating today, so yeah, I'm Gucci. Or yesterday.
I'm not sweating at all right now.
He said I'm cold. Nah, man.
I ain't know my hands could be like this, yo.
Yo, it's different, man. No, on everything, Philip, I'm so glad that you're on, man. We actually got to talk. He just wrote an awesome book about Black liberation. I should have, man, I'm slipping. As a matter of fact, do I have it? Can I grab it real quick? I should have just had it on me. But tell the title of your book, and I actually was able to cite it in my thesis. He teaches and studies transhumanism. It's black liberation. I love so much that when I got introduced to transhumanism, my whole thing was about this whole idea of us being seen as the sum of our experiences. And I thought that, man, maybe that's something that us as, you know, the minorities and what we've gone through, maybe that's something we should be into. And lo and behold, I see that my homie, you know, from the home team had already written a book and he's teaching it, you know. So I'd love for you to talk about your book and, you know, what you hoping people get from it when you wrote it.
That's a good question, yo. The book is, and simply put, it's just like an imaginary kind of theory around what would happen if Black folks were to mix spirituality and technology, and like this fight towards liberating realities. And so essentially, for folks who came from Christian traditions, Muslim traditions, so on and so forth, what might it be if we were to put on maybe some nodes on our brains and kind of see what may be the most fitting spiritual practices for the individual, and then beginning to merge those with other kind of emerging technologies, right? Or something along the lines of like maybe the Neuralink, where we can kind of direct neural pathways and so on and so forth. Or if we were, to think even more futuristic, right, and create kind of biosensors that exist in our bodies, and mix those with nanobots and all types of other things, potential, right? It kind of reminds me of this other piece I worked on in terms of like the Black post-human transformer, where it's actually the shapeshifter who can do pretty much anything that's only limited by its imagination. So the book is really just kind of giving folks an entryway into thinking about the potential for mixing their bodies with technologies, and reframing what it means for us to consider ourselves black bodies as technologies, right? Because I think there's a historical the connotation of bodies being technology places back in the node of being objects, and then that goes back to like a slavery, or and the antebellum period, and folks don't want to be seen as objects. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, and a body's a body, and you can point towards it, and that it's a thing over there. And the reality is, and we put our bodies on the line, like we all play the ball together. If X's and O's is an abstraction of what we really are. And so if you move these 5 bodies in this one direction and then cut the other body back, we're really talking about a zone read play on some level, right, from an offensive perspective. But we've turned these bodies into objects. So we've always, on some level, been objects. So I'm really just asking folks to be honest about how they function in society, and then turn that on its head as a kind of strategic way of rethinking, and then kind of being different. And so that's kind of that book. But I mean, that one came out, man, with 2019. I got another one called Critical Black Futures. That one's coming out in March, and that's more of an anthology. We got a whole bunch of folks coming in here talking about just kind of futuristic modes of iteration, and just kind of imagining, just different ways of potential. We got futuristic cities, we got Black queer stuff, we got Black trans stuff in there, we got Black nationalism, we got a chapter on W.E.B. Du Bois. We got some art pieces in the middle. It's just a big FU to anything that tries to anything anti-Black. And so, the whole idea, man, is just to turn this whole thing on its head, and deconstruct it, and be speculative and imagining, right? One of the pieces in there looks at kind of 500 years in the future, and what technology and Blackness might look like, and that kind of perspective. So, yeah, man, we just trying to put ourselves in spaces that nobody else wants to see us in.
That's beautiful, man. I love to hear that. And this is, very similar, these conversations, and while we're talking about this film, is about the expanding the experience and the perspective of what a Black man is, and what a Black body is, right? And what all those experiences and perspectives are of us, and just stretching that thing out. Like it's an infinite thing that all of us are. And I love that so much. Now, if you can't tell, Philip's wheelbarrow, like we need to be going down the cyberpunk, Blade Runner. We need to get it, the Matrix. I can't wait to bring you in on some real nice cyberpunk nerd sessions, man, in the future. Definitely.
100%. We already there, man. I don't know if y'all ever seen that Vented mask, man. That joint is like, it covers the whole face and it goes around the back. It's almost pretty smooth. It's the other one that goes like from the chest up. It looks like you're inside like an individual pod, man. But I think we already there, man. The air isn't safe.
Word, son. Yo, it's crazy, man. Yo, the air is burning out here, bro. The air is burning, bro. But no, man. And then I gotta introduce my homie, Mr. Palestine Croswell. That's right, my man. I don't even know how I should introduce you, my man. I mean, you're a man like this is my homie. He's from Jersey. Now when we met, you know what I'm saying? He was the cat that came from Jersey. He had the North swag. You know, we suburban Germantown boys. You know, he come up there, Jersey, Jersey son. You know what I mean? Nah, you know what I'm saying? Jersey, bro, Jersey. Nah, man. I love Palestine, man. Honestly, my man was in my wedding. He has a heart of gold. One of the kindest guys I know. My man, every time we talk, we get on our Black Israelite discussions. We talk about Black empowerment. He encourages me. He's just one of those good friends that always fill me up, man. So give it up for my man, Pally. Thank you so much for showing up, man. Thank you so much for showing up, my man.
Happy to be here. Once, I mean, when I got the the invite, man, I was like, I didn't even when you told me, I didn't know what the movie was when I Judas and the Black Messiah, but I saw Judas and Messiah, and I was like, yeah,
I'm there. Yeah, man. I'm there. It's so poetic. No, honestly, Fred Hampton is one of my favorite men in history. 21-year-old, man. What the heck was I doing when I was 21? I put this picture here for the show. You guys can't see it from that angle, but I have a photo of him up, and I keep it downstairs beside my big screen. Because I can especially being a filmmaker, I can always catch myself movie binging and being like I'm wasting plenty of time. I can be like, oh, I'm studying, right? But nah, I'm being lazy as hell. But then I look over to the right real quick and I see this 21-year-old whose mother he babysat Emmett Till. This man was 20 years old in the 60s, a Black man that decided to sacrifice, decided to live for something bigger than himself, and I'm like, it's one of the most inspirational stories for me. So I'm really appreciate you guys hopping on this and checking it out with me, man, because I really want to dive into it. Now, I go about things typically when I have one guest on. I introduce you guys and we ask a lot of fun, cool questions. I'm going to wait until I get you guys individually. Well, one, because I know that Philip has a hard out in a couple of hours. And two, because I'd rather you guys, again, I'd really want to get into it with specific movies with you two. Well, I want to let people know, just because I don't think a lot of people know the history of the Black Panther Party. So I'm just going to do a quick little rundown of what I've learned from what I know as to be what's happened to them. And then we'll dive into the actual film. All right. And please, stop me. I don't want, this can be a discussion. I don't want, to just read from this, right? No, you can, what, for real, he did that, Yep. So the Black Panther Party, I really appreciate this documentary. It introduced them, and it said that to describe the Black Panther Party is like several blind people touching an elephant, and then describing it based on the part of it that it touched. So one person will touch the side of it and be, oh, this is a wall, and then someone else will grab the hose, and will say, oh, this is something else, and then someone else will grab the tusk and say, oh, this is a weapon, or so. Basically, depending on your perspective of the Black Panther Party and how they hit you is basically, how you might see them. I think that they came during a time where we were wanting to express ourselves, right? And this is at a very turbulent time where MLK got assassinated, Malcolm X, and our guy, what's his name, Huey Newton, and Bobby Seale, they were out in Cali, and Huey basically learned the law, and because of police brutality, a lot of police brutality that was happening out just in general in urban areas in Black America, he basically said, all right, we're gonna learn how far we can walk away or stand or in front of policemen when they're like arresting people, and then we're gonna just sit there with guns, and we're just gonna check and make sure that they're doing their thing, right? I could not picture that right now. I could not picture like what would they do, right? This is just so on point with everything that's happening, that's been happening, with all the police killings and everything, right?
I don't know, man. I feel like that folks ain't really tried it again though. But because I think about you, if say we go back to the beginning of last summer for real, and you got George in the position he's in, but you got 20 dudes shows up with pistols that are licensed to carry. Somebody maybe have a long gun or something like that. But again, they just standing there. Like, do you think you think this the same things, the same outcomes from the current 8 minutes?
No, of course not.
Just like that, what was it? That group that went to, I believe, the Capitol. They were in Atlanta, and it was like they had guns, like machine guns, and
the not fucking around crew.
Yeah, there it is. Those
that's what they called. Oh wow,
wow.
Yeah,
and
I didn't hear about
those
that.
guys were up there. Did they get shot? Did anything happen to them? It was more like it was this book that I read called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and it was saying how like if there's oppressor, the oppressor will never allow the oppressed to like. They wouldn't just let them go. It's like, okay, guys, you guys can do whatever you want. I'm sorry, my apologies. They're not going to do it because then you become a threat.
Right.
You become a threat to them. So it's almost like you have to stand your ground. You have to stand in. Yeah. So I agree. I agree.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know how possible it would be today. I think that they both missed out. I think they both missed out.
You're skeptical.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know, but just because the reason why the Black Panthers got decimated the way they did, it's very similar to any other Black movement, whether it was Tulsa, Oklahoma. Man, there's just so many situations where we try to do things and then it gets thwarted. And I think in the case of the Black Panthers, it was definitely you're carrying guns that definitely didn't make the situation easier. And I think that maybe if they did it in the right times and specific instances, maybe it could have it may not have turned people off the way it did towards the end. But I think that the mission was accomplished. I think that that's like they had an opportunity. You think about it right now, the police, they don't have the arms, or they don't to be able to do community service. They don't have there's so many things that they say that they don't want to do that the Black Panthers were there doing. And if they would have unified, they could have had the police back. They could have been like, no, we were standing there. It happened like this. It happened like that. Like it could have evolved. If they, I felt like they really could have used each other. That to me, that's the way policing could have, reform it or whatever could have happened. And I just think that they were like, nope. That like comfort and the structure, the power structure was more important at that time, and it was just scary. There were just, I mean, when that Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, and when they were trying to change all these gun laws, and when they were when Bobby Seale walks up to the court, the press stops talking to Ronald Reagan and runs over to Bobby Seale, and they're like, I don't like that side of the street anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's just so much texture there, and they weren't having it, man. And also they had communist and socialist sentiments, and they weren't playing that back then. They had the Red Scare in Hollywood. They were kicking people out of the country, There was they were not playing about that socialist communist stuff. We chose capitalism as a country, and on the heels of with the Cold War and all that coming up, I just don't think.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I have to push back just a smidge, man. Like, because even this idea of this idea of policing being able to do what it says it can do in terms of protecting and serving. I'm skeptical, mainly given its roots in like the slave patrol and the maintenance of like the same trajectories now. It's like you label these bodies and you keep them at bay and you treat them certain ways. I mean, we literally just watched, yesterday they acquitted 45. They acquitted this man for everything he did and all the connections he had. And so it's like, obviously the conversation was around January 6th and this insurrection. And so it's like, not only did they not bring the same amount of firepower that they brought to any Black Lives Matter rally or any type of gathering from over the summer, right? This bloody summer 2020. But they just let these jokers run through the Capitol. And we all grew up around DC. Ain't no way in the world you finna just walk up to the state Capitol like that. You telling me that they just they bust through like they were super powerful or something? Hell nah. They ain't bring the manpower for them. Nah, I don't. And so I think I would be lying if I'm not saying that I think that what the Black Panthers were doing, and even the way they went about it, was not something that had to be antithetical to any particular motive of construction of pretty much the way in which things were. Because if it would not, then it could not have been as counter-cultural, right, as it was attempting to be. And mind you, right, towards the end, right, back especially in HQ back in Oakland, after Huey gets out of jail and we see that he's changed, right, and that he does not run things the way he does. And we have like the deterioration internally, COINTELPRO, so on and so forth. We saw COINTELPRO happen even in the movie, right? Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, man, I don't like it. Does like revolutionary modes of movement cannot be assimilated in the type of way that I think that folks want it to be, right? Even, I mean, if you take something as simple as kneeling with Kaepernick, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's cool to be to be a protester, but all my man did was take a knee. It was like, I'm not feeling this right now, but somehow he still doesn't have a job when we got these sorry quarterbacks throughout the league, right? And so it's like anything like revolutionaries, it's not meant to fit in. I'm like this merger melting pot that we say America is not necessarily living up to its metal, and it sure as hell is not going to embrace the particular types of countercultural revolutionary rhetoric and movement that folks are enacting and then moving, especially in the organizing place. Even when what Paulo P was talking about with Paulo Freire, right, Pedagogy of Press, one thing that man says in there, and not everybody's talking about this, but Paulo Freire says that counterviolence from the oppressed is not violence, because it would not be violence if it was not inaugurated from the oppressive regime. So in order to move and push back, that's no longer violence, according to this man. His framework, and Paulo Freire was also a lawyer, right? So it's something to think about in terms of the ways that, like, if pushing back in a quote unquote violent manner is no longer violent if it's done from the perspective of the oppressed space, because the oppressed wouldn't exist if there wasn't oppression to begin with. And so anything that they do to move out of that space is no longer considered violence. It's survival, it's self-determination. It fits along with the very modes of, of what the Black Panther Party is talking about, especially when we talk about their 10-point program and so forth. So I don't know, man. I don't think it's ever meant to mesh. I think it's meant to change. Now, change is the violence is in many cases is violence in and of itself, because you're asking people to step outside of the regular everyday modes of living, thinking, existing, and changing that is violent. And that's why people will die. I don't know, when I was reading this morning, some people would die to stay in the Matrix. Like they would die and they will kill you. They will kill you so that they stay in the Matrix too.
Yeah, man. No, that's Plato's Cave, man. And we learned that in film, where it's these, let me see if I'm gonna say it right. These people are in chains and they're staring at they're staring at shadows on the walls moving around, and they're like, ooh, this is great. Then one of them breaks free, and they crawl up, and they look, and they see that it's just all of these masters watching them, just watching them move around and stuff. And he goes back down, and he goes, hey guys, hey, look, all these people up there are just watching us, like, moving around and stuff. It's all rigged. And then he goes to break them free, and they kill him. So it's like, I feel you on that, where it's like, people would rather, because people want to be safe, and the dominating system, of course, prevails, whether how much they incorporate the zeitgeist as times go by in order to get better. I mean, first of all, I don't know about y'all. I just learned like 12 things just when they were both talking. Like, I'm just like soaking it all up still right now. I'm like, hold up, son. I gotta read a couple of books. But no, but still, when I think about, the police, slave patrols, it was about protecting, and even the stock exchange. It was about the property at the time. And I'm not saying I'm all for capitalism or whatever the system is, but that the system was that at that time. And now I'm not gonna say that there shouldn't be a police. I don't think that like, society, there needs to be some sort of I don't know if we're afraid of that term policing, but some sort of structure protecting, I don't know if it's property protecting. I don't community support. I don't necessarily know my opinion of what that looks like, but in my opinion, I don't know. I feel like it does kind of look like, all right, so it started off this way. It started off like, to capture slaves and stuff, but now that we winning, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying everybody winning, but I'm just saying now that I wake up in the morning and I create my will because of what my divine and loving ancestors had to go through in the past. Now, y'all need to protect my property. You feel me? And what does that look like now? To me, I think about, man, like, wouldn't it be cool if it was some amalgamation of the Black Panther Party and the police? And I don't. And see, the Black Panther Party, and to my understanding, it grew really, really fast. You talk about when Huey Newton, he got out of jail and he got iconized. He was not necessarily the icon that was Free Huey Newton. It got way bigger than him. And when he got out of jail, he was a lot of things. He was still a revolutionary, but he became an addict. And he became abusive. People very close to him said that he alienated himself and would treat people bad. There was a lot of things that happened in his life, that he was, there was just a lot that happened. And a lot of dissent was happening with COINTELPRO, with them sending letters to girlfriends and, and all the stuff that we saw with William O'Neill, all these things that were happening. And most of the leaders were in jail most of the time. So this movement was more was not as grasping. It wasn't as purposeful, maybe, as people may think. Like, it was just like Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seals, like, just for this decade, just pushed this Black Panther. It was a movement. It was something that so many people got excited because of what was happening at that time. And you see what's happening right now and what people are, quote unquote, excited for at this time. But I think we have been conditioned. I'm not saying that for better or worse. I'm not saying that we're all super submissive or anything like that. But I think that white supremacy has done a lot of things, and it was very effective. And I don't know if that negates whether or not there should be police or not, I guess, is kind of what I'm saying.
And I think it's our value was taken away, from in slavery. It was like, our life value is taken away. So like when you were saying, you mentioned that police, we're asking the police to protect our property. And I laugh because it's like, well, shouldn't we protect our property? Like
But
the
what if
thing.
we were the police? What if we saw the police as us?
So yeah, exactly. So it's like policing your community like they did, like Huey Newton did, like the Black Panther Party did, and like taking responsibility of our own community, rather than trying to put it onto someone else, because we're asking, and when I say oppressor, I'm just giving that name, but we're asking the powers that be, what I'm saying? We're asking them to protect our value and give us value and give our life value.
Well, I got a question, Pally. So what if I was like, okay, what if everything ideally happened with the Black Panther Party? So let's say that they won. Wouldn't you say that they would resemble something very much that is very police force-esque? Wouldn't you think? And wouldn't that police force be us? It wouldn't be me asking these other people in this sort of figment imaginary place where where the Black Panthers and the police decided to unify, and that's because I understand what you mean. I don't like why would you trust a system that the very basis of it that's what we're talking about. That's literally what we're talking about.
And then agreeing with your, like, going with what you're saying, like the Revolutionary War, when they were fighting against Britain and England, like when they fought, they were like, look, y'all taxing us, y'all doing this, like we're gonna do this, handle this ourselves. What I'm saying?
Right. No taxation without representation.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a sign. We need to go ahead in. Fred's calling for us, guys.
Yeah. I want to say two things. One thing, Frank, I remember having that shirt, so I just wanted to give that shirt itself a shout out because that shirt is fire. It's 100% 90s all the way. And then just to tie what you and Polly was saying together, man, like I don't disagree in terms of that it would look like the police, but I think we're talking about like a more localized presence where it reflects the community in which it's a part of. And you could argue in a very real way on some level that the vetting process, right? Like, because I think we're talking about Pro, and obviously we won't get into the movie specifically, right? But where you find these people, like where you come from, and I think this is where you see like where today a lot of transients moving in and out of cities, so it'd be kind of hard to be like, all right, you're from here, but because you live here now. But the way the Panthers would, if they were to have won, you would probably see like obviously it would reflect Chicago, or specifically West Side Chicago, and it would be the powers at least in the policing sense be reflective of that community, whereby if it's 90% Black, it would probably 90 or more percent be Black folks in that community, and so on and so forth. So like a localized power structure. And I think that's what people are afraid of, at least from the top down, because it relinquishes their ability to exert themselves over against what folks really want and what's necessary in their local communities, given that way budgets are distributed, so on and so forth. Those are the two things I wanted to say.
That's beautiful. No, thank you, man. That you said it. I'm gonna give you guys something. So in the film industry, it's something we will passionately, or what do you say, affectionately call it cinematic immunity. So dig it. So I actually have a complete opposite story, where a kind of a bad story with the police on set, but that's another day. Most of the time, or I could tell you one of the first times. So when we're on set, a lot of times, especially locations, we have the police around because they need to help us with traffic and just people walking around. And young Jeezy say you see the state troopers get butterflies, bro. I don't even realize when I'm that, especially in my younger days, when I'm avoiding policemen, I'm like walking the opposite way, or just never being around them. And as I'm locking up or as I'm working on set, you start seeing them buddying up to you and stuff. And I'm like, yo, are they trying to like build a case against me or something? Like, what? I'm like, when is the last time I was in town? I need to know why is this dude talking to me? But then, you know, like somebody will start walking up and I'm trying to like keep them off of the set and they'll, hey, what? Hey, hold on. Whoa, wait, do you guys need any help? Hold on, wait. And I'm like, oh, snap, the police is on my side, y'all. The police is on my side. And I'm only joking to say, but all of that is just to say that I honestly felt like I felt for the first time, I was like, oh, I can use this. They can be there for my benefit. And what a notion. What a notion to be glad that they're there. I'm like, must be what it's like on the other side. I feel like it can be that way. It can be that way for us, man. It should be that way for us. That's the way it should be. We should not, I mean, you know, we shouldn't have this PTSD every time we see a state trooper or, you know, even when, you know, I'm grown as hell riding with my kids, son, with my little baby. And I'm like, yo, keep quiet, little baby. Keep quiet. The fans is here. The fuzz, keep it on the low. But nah, man, that's beautiful, man. All right, Fred, we're gonna get into your movie, all right, man. I will say one thing that I really liked. They could have made this a biopic about Fred Hampton. They also could have made it this anti-hero story about William O'Neill. I love that it was kind of this amalgamation, and I felt like the movie really was a song or really tapped into the times of what people were feeling, and we kind of saw it through these different perspectives. I love Lakeith's performance. It's so mesmerizing to see the cognitive dissonance. He did it so well, you know. The thing that ticks me off the most about there's so many things. I mean, Fred Hampton got assassinated, right? But a 17-year-old kid was manipulated by the most powerful entity in the world at that time, known as the American government. A little 17-year-old boy got manipulated. He probably doesn't have a father figure because he said that his mentor, William O'Neill, said his mentor was the FBI agent. Probably didn't have a father figure, did not know who he was, who he wanted to be, was just surviving being a black man in the hood, and he was a little slimy, yeah, clearly, you know, and he found a way of living that was crooked, and he was 17. He didn't have time. Nobody told him. Nobody said anything. And before then, this evil monster grabbed a hold of him. This monstrous government grabbed a hold of him and made him do something that he never understood all the way till the day he died. They put out, side note, when William O'Neill did Eyes on the Prize, the interview that they show, that was on Eyes on the Prize 2 documentary. We watched that. I don't know if y'all were in class with me or not. We watched that in Mr. Lewis's class.
No, I wasn't.
Way back in the day in African American studies. Yeah, man. We watched it for like a week. It was like job long. But
Mr. Lewis tell y'all about his suicide afterwards? Because I don't remember none of that part.
No, not at all. Not at all. But you feel me on that where he never processed it, and you even saw in the interview at the end, he was still rationalizing what he did. It didn't even make any sense what he was saying. Like, I did it, I sacrificed, and I did what I had to do. I laid it on the line. He never thought, you know, he never thought about anything. He never grew. And then, of course, when the interview comes out, he actually commits suicide because now the world knows what he did, right? And he never processed that, man. He never saw himself. So that's just one thing that, you know, that just really irks my nerves, you know, about the whole thing. So we start off and Fred Hampton is given a speech, and J. Edgar Hoover is playing a tape of Fred Hampton giving a speech. And this is, you know, good old J. Edgar and the FBI back then, man. They was on all of them, man. They was on all of them. And Fred Hampton represented an inflamed population that wanted a different way. They just and he was young. Who knows what he could have grew into and what he might have delved into, what he would have grew from. But mainly he studied Mao, communism, socialism. Those were the things that because it was all about like F capitalism, F whatever America is doing. We need to do something different, and socialism also appealed a lot to the masses. Do you guys think that capitalism or well, now y'all gonna get put on the list. Y'all better be careful how y'all answer this question.
Yeah, I might be on that list already.
Yeah, you on there. You on there.
You already got a few books out. You definitely on there.
They don't read them damn books.
So, do you think that you would have agreed with Fred Hampton if you sat down and had a talk with him about politics, socialism, communism, capitalism?
Oh, anybody?
You want to go first?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's so I would say for that time, because I feel like socialism is for the I believe socialism is like it's for the oppressed. To start, you got to work together to get yourself out of poverty, to get yourself out of a certain system. So I think at that time, yeah, I would, and just in a sense of that's how you build yourself up. That's how like you build yourself up as a community. You know what I'm saying? Is through, everybody working together, and because you're all coming from the bottom, if you try to do capitalism, it's not going to work because whatever you're getting it from the poor, you're getting from the oppressed, you're getting it from. So it's like I think there's different stages of it. I don't think there's one because a lot of people or society tries to like split it and say, okay, there's capitalism, socialism, and all these other political systems, But honestly, it's just how we work together.
It's more progress.
It's more progress. So it advances each time. So I think at the time, in that culture, in the Black culture, there was poverty, there was oppression. There's all these different factors, and he's saying like, hey, we need to all work together to build ourselves up, and it eventually evolves. So
right.
yeah, at that time, I would say, yeah, I would have agreed with him.
Cool. What about you, Ill Phil?
I think so, man. I mean, I think there's always this weird space. Like I know Sean King is not everybody's favorite person, but I think he made the statement a while back. It was like, whatever you're doing now is what you probably would have done during the civil rights movement or whatever, whatever time you were in. And so I'm thinking about it, like, I don't have the temperament to march. I don't have it. Like we all, like, I can't just sit there and just let folks like spit on me. I don't have time to be out here waiting for the police to like, to move backwards. Like we all grew up together. We we know that like we all, so it's just like, that's not in me. But I do think that I probably would have found some I probably would have resonated with some of the things that the folks were saying. And I like the scene in the movie when Fred first meets William, at least as it's kind of set up, right? And they're in the classroom, he's teaching, and he's asking, what's the most powerful weapon, right? And it's like, is it guns, is it government, so on and so forth. And then Fred was like, he turns around, he writes on the board, and he looks back, he's like, it's the people. And so I agree with him on that sentiment, but I also like that's the strength, but it's also the weakness of the entire movement at all times, because you got to trust other people to have your back. And we've seen time and time again, like that's the very like back, the downfall of it all. Like, and so that is the only thing that I feel like I disagree with, but I'm fully on like self-determination. I'm fully on like these kind of socialist platforms, because wealth needs to be redistributed. Like the distribution has not really ever historically been, widely spread, and we've seen what that has done. And so as a result, man, I think I would probably would have leaned closer to that, man. I think, in the socialism we seen, it's funny though. A buddy of mine, we always say that like, the American left really isn't that damn left to begin with. And like the, if every other major, first world country has some basic stuff like education and, and medicine taken care of, but we up here still trying to, fight for the open market for our healthcare. It's like, our left really ain't that left, man. And so like, to say something simple as self-determination while simultaneously asking folks to be able to live, right, and to work with pride, man, and be able to find themselves to be purposefully, gainfully employed. Like, that's not hard, man. And given that we the richest, country in the world still, while that's diminishing, but it's, we still got the ability, man. So to me, I'd lean that way.
All right.
Cool. You guys are on the list. Not me. I don't agree.
You just gotta, Frank, you gonna turn this in, man?
Right there.
Damn. Y'all see the different complexion? Look, you see the hairstyle? I don't look nothing like them. No. So, nah, man, that's cool. And I love also in that scene. Do you remember when? Was it the same exact scene? I know it was the classroom when William was flirting with the light-skinned female, and then Fred stopped him. Again, a 20-year-old, he's laser focused. It's all about the movement. It's all about the movement. I admire focus so much. When you see that in somebody, they are here for something, man. Like that's somebody. I love. It feeds me when I see that from people. Now, when his wife meets him, I love. She comes in as a speechwriter, and they kind of play back and forth. He's like, I don't need a speechwriter. He's like, yeah, you do. He's like, but it got you here. Right, hey, he's cooking. Yeah, man, my man was spitting the game, man. He was spitting the game, and let's see, he quite specifically, he ended up running chapters in Chicago in the NAACP, as well as chairman of the Black Panther Party, and I feel like very similar to what the Nation of Islam did to Malcolm X. The Black Panther Party and the NAACP, and in a lot of ways, Southern Baptist Christianity, it gave us discipline. It was a flavor of discipline that a lot of us, depending on where you come from and what you believe in, you may scrutinize the extreme sides of one side or the other, but the discipline that it gives somebody, I feel like in a way, it's a time in your life almost. I feel like a lot of us, and I would love for you guys to talk about this. I feel like he's similar to many young men and women. You get grounded in this particular thing that gives you the zeal. You get grounded there, and you read the books and you learn, and it gives you discipline. But then you kind of grow from it. You start to expand. Right, and I feel like that it is it's more the condition of being that type of person to lay yourself to that is more important than the actual thing. I.e., Coach Trivers, Jaguars, man. He gave us discipline, if nothing else. And maybe none of us was with Brady holding up the Lombardi this past month, but at least was that?
I said, or tossing the Lombardi.
Right, you dig? My man, are you mad? Are you mad at Brady right now? Is that what Okay, cool.
But no, I still don't like him. I still don't like that guy. I don't care. He's got 7. I don't care. You got it. That's I down his skill. I just don't like him. I don't care.
He's like, all right, man. 7, man. I get
it. Man. You got it. You can't be mad. I'm whatever, man. We're gonna do right.
The next movie we'll delve into. I'm gonna make a Tom Brady movie, and I'll call you to break it down.
Personally,
There will be explicit language in that one.
I imagine.
No, man, I really I wanted you guys to talk about that. You know, just thinking about, again, like just with Coach Trivers and the Jaguar way, giving us that discipline. Can't you see that? You know, just how you can, just that time in your life choosing to be disciplined and adhere to something. Either one of y'all want to touch on that?
No, it did. It definitely and just kind of talking about Coach T, like he changed my life. You know, I was definitely not on the right if you call it right path or whatever path that is. I was definitely not. Like, I wasn't.
Yeah,
you know, like the first time I come into school, I'm getting in fights. Like it just wasn't.
Yeah.
You know,
Don't downplay yourself, pal. You was an upstanding individual, though. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise.
That's my man.
Y'all were the captains, man. Y'all were the captains. After I graduated, I know, man. Y'all led them to the championship. We got too gangster. We was listening to 50 Cent. We all ineligible for the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? So y'all was the captains when they took them to the next level, man. You know.
Well, Ike and them were the captains.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, it was the next year. That's right.
Yeah, the next year.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up to us.
Oh, yeah, right after y'all left.
The wounds. The wounds.
Son, Doc.
I can't say anything. I was long gone. Y'all was like, that was good. You're like, good Lord, that stench is gone. It's like,
but no. So like Coach T, man. I mean, honestly, it was the feeling of believing in something bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he harped at it, like he like embedded that into our head.
Right.
You know, instilled that, and it's like, hey, you're doing this for a bigger cause. This is for, you know, not only for your team, but you're making history. Like it was always, you're making history, man.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it was something that was before that, I never believed in anything beyond myself, because it was survival. When you're just in survival mode and you're just surviving in life, you know, all you're thinking about is what I'm going to eat, where I'm going to go, how do I protect myself. But then when someone or something can take you outside of yourself, you know, you become a bigger person. You know, you feel free from that bondage of trying to just survive. So like the discipline, you know, you're like, I want to do this. I want to come in at 6 a.m. and leave at, you know, 5:30, 6 o'clock, you know, 2 days. I want to work out every single day. I want to do this because it's bigger than me, you know, and you just feel like you're a part of something. And that's why, you know, I think discipline and like, that's how discipline works, is to feel like, for you to believe that something's bigger than you and you're going to work much harder. You're going to go beyond your limitations to be that great. Yeah.
I feel like one of the biggest things that I really think that Jaguar Life for that I notice in my life is passing my threshold. You know, most people in life, when they work until it gets uncomfortable. And when it gets uncomfortable, they do what they can, they batten down the hatches, you know, but then, you know, eventually, you know, they're going to go move to the path of least resistance, right? You know, I think so much that experience, because like you said, once you see yourself waking up at 6 a.m. and once you see yourself, that self-actualization, that I once was this and now I'm that, and you get that confidence and you know that it's possible. You know, it's on and popping, that discipline, you know, that really just you know, it's beautiful stuff, man. And you know, when we're talking about with William O'Neill, you know, the complete opposite of discipline, you know, that he never had anything to clinch onto. And I really feel like he was really starting to, you know, we can see in the movie that he starts to appreciate the sort of familial bond. When they went to go, because Fred Hampton's crazy, but he goes in the middle of the projects to talk to gangsters to try to get them to come in, man.
Yeah.
Schooling these gangsters. What are you thinking, man? I'm like, this dude is super brave, but but then William O'Neill comes in.
Chicago too, like,
was that?
Yeah,
I
man.
said in Chicago too, like
Right?
Yo, there's so much respect in that moment. I was like, this is so hard. I was like,
it
yo,
was hard.
Some OGs that was in
there. Them was some like old school Shy City cats, and he's 20 years old in there. Like, yo, like this revolution, that's what's popping, bro. Yeah, man, that's something. But real recognize real. You know what I mean? Just like they recognize William for being, he wasn't an FBI agent. But they recognize Fred as a real, as an activist, right? Now, the FBI gives William a car, and I one thing that made me think about that is it's the little things that make you useful, and it's those little things that just entrench you that much more. Because remember, William O'Neill didn't just infiltrate; he became like the head of the security,
running away during a gunfight though. I was so mad at that joint.
What's that?
Nah, he was the head of security, but he ran away during the gunfight. I was frustrated.
I feel you though, but see, you already know he was the rat. He was he was getting a lot of dodge, right? He was going to tell at that point, But William, excuse me, there's a burnt stuck up earlier. So you need the crown, right? Yeah. So he goes to save them from the crown. He saves the dude swinging this pool stick, and then they call him Wild Bill. Yeah, that's Wild Bill, right? And he started feeling himself, and he's talking to himself at home, like, huh, I'm Wild Bill, man. But that to me that's a sad scene, because it's like that, he's looking, man. He's a lost little puppy, man. And it's just too late, because he has the cowardice. He hadn't built up the strength to be able to do your time, man. How the OGs tell you do your time, and it's not just to be all OG and cool. You do your time because it's better than living outside and being suicidal, right?
Yeah,
he eventually killed himself, so it clearly wasn't better, right? He should have just did his time. It was only a few years.
Right. But I mean, you're 17, 17, and you've been acting like an FBI agent, robbing. How much you gonna get out of him? It's like my cousin. When I watched it, you guys remember Malachi?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm watching with him, and he's like, man, I don't understand, like, why, you just do your time, like, but it's like, you got to look at the person's character.
Right.
If they haven't had that character, like you were saying, if they haven't had that character built, to, I guess, that character build, then they're not going to be what you think they're going to be because of how you are. Yeah, you would think, I'm going to do my bid. That's what I'm going to do. But someone like him who is personating to be an FBI agent, hijacking his own people's cars. I mean, you're not gonna get much out of him. That's all.
Right. He's like, no, you're right, man. I mean, and he said that Agent Roy was his role model, and he also said that we don't have a lot of role models. All we got is MLK and Muhammad Ali. What do you mean? All you have? Who else do you want? You know what I mean? Like to me, that's him. That shows the lack of confidence he has in himself.
Right.
I think that it's just as important for America to see Fred Hampton, the revolutionary, as it is for people to see William O'Neill, the broken and abused worst version of himself that committed suicide, because you could say in a lot of ways that he can represent Black America in so many ways, because we did get taken advantage of, and we did get forced into a system to make us act unlike each other and to stab each other in so many ways, throughout time and divide. And you see how in so many ways how they would say, if you're black and successful, like not to hang out with each other because if y'all start grouping up, so you know they start dividing and hating on each other and all these little things that that happen to the Black Panther Party. You know, they're all, but it's all of these things that we get conditioned to. You know, this is the condition, and that's why I mean, like, it's hard for me to imagine. I guess it's not hard for me to imagine because I keep saying it, but for it to be reality that the Black Panthers in that way, because they actually do exist. There is a new Black Panther Party, but in that way, for them to exist today, the way that they did then, you know.
I want to go back a second, man.
Yeah.
Because when you were talking about like he was feeling himself in the mirror, right, or back at this house.
Mm-hmm.
Like they gave him a name, you know what I mean? But he still was this informant. And so but that ties back to what you were saying in the beginning about like this dissonance he has in terms of like where he says that he was a part of the movement. He was on the ground, he was laying on the line, but while also, justifying, what he was doing. And it's like his ability to not, because I don't think what you would point to is like that he was proud that he had infiltrated at that moment, but that he was proud that he was a part of it.
Right.
And so it's like this,
that's real.
like him being able to, not being able to, but like just because I mean, we will all recognize that we're made up of more than one thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? We were all, on the same football team at one point. We from different spaces, and, whether it be in Maryland itself or from Jersey, like all three of us from Maryland, both of us or two of us from Jersey, two different places. I was born there, probably came from there later on. You know what I'm saying? Like these different hats that we wear, like these different, like, and so like we're already like multifaceted. But I think what we're seeing in his character is the ways in which his multifaceted likeness is actually so like diametrically opposed. Like it's like his ability to be himself also turns on himself, which creates like this like internal implosion. And like where he can't like sustain the way in which he
yeah, they bump against each other. That's real talk, man. You know, William, my favorite scene of him specifically is definitely when he puts on the performance of his life and he's like, I'm gonna find this rat, y'all. And then he hops in the car, and when he's in reverse and he's just, so again, that I saw it all tinkering in his head. That smile, but it's so much happening in the back of his head, It's just all of that stuff it's that rush that you're talking about that is ultimately gonna make him kill himself. But it's also this disappointment too that I saw. I felt in that smile too. It's like he knew he was kind of not that, right? And I also think with Fred Hampton, what he really liked in Bill, because I know with me, one of my flaws that I saw in Fred Hampton, at least with William O'Neill, is that you see the best in people. I have a bad habit of seeing the best in somebody and treating them like that. And then it takes till you get screwed to be like, oh, they're actually that, right? And I think that with Fred Hampton, what he really loved about Wild Bill was that in that moment, just in that moment, he saw somebody that was willing to die. He saw somebody that had a death wish like him. That there was, and when I say death wish, I mean who had a purpose that was bigger than himself, and he kind of saw that in him, right? And he kind of admired that. But William was never about that life, right? He was never about that life.
You want to talk about that for a moment though? Like, I don't know, like I don't know if you had this conversation with your lady or whatever, but the conversation that Fred was having even after he found out that she was pregnant, and where he was, he gave the speech when they were talking about Fred's back, and she realized that he is perfectly fine with dying. Yeah. Like he's perfectly fine with taking this thing all the way to the end. Mm-hmm. But there's a seed there. Like there's family there. There's children that's on the way. Like, mm-hmm. And we can say this like capitalist framework, but just you got also say it's like, yo, just basic survival. Like maybe you should tame it down just a smidge, so that you can say you can see your kids, you know.
Right. And it looked like he would have considered moving out of the country, but he was thinking prison time. I don't think he realized. I mean, he might have had that harbinger in death, like very similar to Malcolm X, I feel like. But yeah, I feel like he kind of he felt death knocking on his door. But I also, part of me thinks that in that moment, at least in the movie, it was a thing of, I'd rather go to prison so that you guys can spend this money on the movement. And then when I come out, you know, I'll have 2, 3, 4 babies, right? It seemed like he was kind of thinking a little bit like that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the times call for it, you know, but to say that it was necessary for Fred Hampton to die, I'm not going to go that far, because I just think that this 21-year-old would have been even better at 42, right? He would have been even better, you know, so, you know.
So do you think that it was his, like maybe you think that it was his age then? Because I mean, you know, you got Malcolm X, you know, who's, I don't know if y'all watched, I don't know if you even did the episode on the One Night in Miami, right?
Yep,
And so
I did.
like,
Yeah, with Mike. Yep.
yeah, right. And so like, Malcolm X is the oldest person in that crew. Like he'd been through, you know what I'm saying, you know, these kind of like phases. And so like, I think we probably could argue that being 20 something, you have this invincibility. You have this invincibility about you, but I'm wondering if maybe if this was like a 29-year-old Fred Hampton, would he have been like, yo, you know what, this is much closer to the end, like having that kind of like foresight or that sense?
I think it would have depended on the times and what he felt like his purpose was. And in a way, I could see what he, like through his perspective, him feeling like he needed to fall on the sword for the people, for the cause, and him seeing what needed to happen, and if so be it, then cool. Because he said that, you know, I'm not going to die, you know, in bed. I'm not going to die slipping on the ice. You know, I'm going to die by the people. And I'm down with that, you know. And I feel like if he was older, in whatever alternate dimension, if he was older, it would have been about what is the purpose, regardless. You know, I think when you're younger, yeah, you're more buck and stuff. But I mean, in the 80s, because, you know, a lot of people will say that, you know, COINTELPRO, Black Panther movement, the 60s civil rights movement, crack, right? Sorry for the mic, guys, but then, bam, crack. You know, right? Yes. Whoa. Boom. Yes. You know, it's just like, and then bam, right? You know? So then so Fred Hampton at that time, would he have saw more of a reason to go all the way in now during the 80s, you know, or maybe with gangster hip hop, right? Maybe if he had lived around gangster hip hop and gangster rap, he would have been older. Maybe he would have been the geezer screaming out the window like those gangsters over there are messing up the movement, right? You know, like who knows, right? You know, I don't know.
It makes me wonder though, and even just thinking about this and like how long it took for them to make this movie, I wonder how long it's gonna take them to make a movie about Assata and the Black Liberation Army, right? We're talking about like quote unquote like legit terrorist cells engaging in like guerrilla warfare on the streets,
right?
Like shooting up police and getting away. Like and Assata is still alive.
Yeah, she's
like
still alive, man. See, I don't, because I don't. First of all, I need to brush up on Assata to really know, to really speak intellectually about it. Now, with the Black Panther Party, they got labeled. Now, their guy Eldridge, I can't remember his last name. So there was Fred Hampton, Bobby Seale. they were a little more sensible, and they were in and out of jail all the time. Bobby Seale eventually ran for mayor like in the 80s, and he lost. Go ahead.
No, I said Eldridge Cleaver.
Thank you, Eldridge Cleaver. Yes, but Eldridge Cleaver, when he came into the scene, he gave them credibility as a great the literature. He wrote a book, as a great writer, and he was kind of a poster boy for a while. But he went ham. They really couldn't control him. He went like he said that he would like challenge the president to like a duel. Like he was. Or like a hand fighter, something. I gotta look for it in the notes. Like he would just say all this crazy off the cuff stuff all the time, and those sentiments really started to identify the Black Panther Party in an extremist light, where once they were like they started off. Again, with those patrols, just watching, making sure people with police brutality weren't getting killed and beat up, and making sure kids had free breakfast with the free breakfast program. And they also did free clinics too. And that was what, that was the main goal. And even later on, after Fred Hampton died, and I want to even say after Huey Newton got out of jail, him and Eldridge, they got into a fight over the phone, like nationally televised, where Eldridge was just saying that he was soft, and that Huey Newton was soft because we're more than like community service. And Eldridge is like, we need to change. No, this is about changing the government. Don't get this twisted. This is about taking it over. So then, that coupled on top of the fear that J. Edgar Hoover and COINTELPRO had of losing, lack of a better term, white supremacy, losing control of capitalism, I guess, losing control of the country, whatever they saw it as, they needed to vilify the Black Panther movement. They could not afford to have people feeling this way and believing it and showing these acts. Like they showed up to the state capitol in Sacramento walking in with guns, and they like what civil. They didn't come in there all bucking stuff. They're like, yo, this cannot happen. We can't have this. So they vilified them in so many ways that it's so easy. I think that's a lot of the reason too why they dissipated in history and in the populace opinion too, because it was just easy to vilify them as those extremes, that they were this terrorist group. And I don't know, like I said, I can't compare them to Asada and everything that happened because I need to brush myself up, but I don't think that the Black Panther Party was a terrorist group. I think they got painted one, and that there were individuals there that did terrorist things because the leadership was in jail most of the time, and it grew way too big, way too fast, and they put seeds of dissent in all these different ways. I think that there was a lot of BS that happened too, but I don't think that it was a terrorist group. I think at the core, the group was of service. So I don't know if I could necessarily compare them in that long rant.
I think it's so the media can be like, it's a war tool too, and by vilifying, they vilify whoever they're attacking,
right.
So in order for everybody to be like, okay, well, they deserve it,
Right.
And I just think that, oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I did.
You're good. I do it all the time. No, you're right.
Now you were saying they vilify him.
Yeah. So they the same way they vilified like Black people to be, to make it okay to treat people to treat them less than human beings. Right. You know what I'm saying? They did the same exact thing, and that's, I don't know. That's just that was my point, is that they consistently do that anyway in the media. They're going to vilify him like they vilified Malcolm X, like they vilified the Nation of Islam. They vilified, anyone, because that was a war against Black freedom, or Black equality. So in order for them to, to battle that, or to fight it is they had to make us look less than, or make us look like we're terrorists, or make us look like, whereas anyone who gave us any type of empowerment, they had to make us look like, make that person or that group look like they, like they were a threat to the nation.
Right. And I really like Judy's character, the dark skinned woman with the big fro, because also at the peak of Black Panther movement, it was majority female. And I love Judy because Judy is that stern love that you could see how she didn't take any crap, but she was also very kind. And even though you didn't, it's you know how she was with Deborah, with Fred Hampton's wife, when she guessed that she was pregnant, and she has this, even when she was interrogating William, I feel like she just has this sort of endearing quality with her that comes with the strength. And going back to with William, when they started interrogating him, so remember when the Crowns recognize him, and then that makes Judy and them start looking at him, and they pull him over to the side, put the gun to him. It's like, yo, where you get this car from? And he's like, oh snap, I'm caught. I want to say, if I was in that car, he would have been done for, because red flag. When he said his main excuse that he said that he got away with it was the keys. He said that he changed the keys. I would have told him to get out of the car, lock the door, close it, open it. Then, and if you're able to, you're done. Because you can't match. If you got it boosted, if you're boosted and then y'all change the key to the ignition is not going to match the door. He would have been shot cloud, bro. I would have took care of that, bro. Y'all no. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, now you on the list, Frank.
No, I am. I just thought of that. See?
I didn't notice.
Oh, now you on the list.
No, I'm editing that part out. And then I'm gonna turn up the volume on your part. No.
Yo, but you were right though in terms of.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying like the like just being like majority female led or just women led, like, and so I wonder about that though.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talk like then when we talk about the folks that was in jail, like but it was majority female led. So I guess the question I'm asking is like when you say that there was a lot of like things happening outside, like you see what I'm saying, like was all of this stuff that you may be arguing is seemingly out of control if the women weren't the ones majority in prison, right? Then were some of these things more intentional, or was it like a lack of respect for this female leadership on some levels? So I'm just wondering about just some of the extra textures to that too, right? Because you think about like Elaine Brown and her work as chairman, like she was a female chairman of the Black Panther Party, right? So I mean, you know, her work in Oakland. So I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, I think when you said that, I knew exactly where you were going, and where my head went to was just the Black home in general, with the Black female, when it was, I don't know if it still is, easier to be on welfare in Section 8 in certain places, rather than, like, you get more money financially, literally, than being married with your significant other or the baby's father. And right, and like kind of the way the system can kind of get set up to just break the home up, just break that holy trinity up of man, woman, and child. I don't know. I guess if a lot of people were in prison and a lot of them were brothers, I just have to see the stats. I'd be talking out the side of my mouth. I'd have to see the stats if it was like equal amount of men and women that were in jail. But it makes sense that they just locked up a bunch of dudes, so then it was a lot of women out there. But I don't know, because part of me is like, what's wrong with that? But then it's the balance. You got to have the balance. Not saying that women can't handle it. It's just we couldn't have did it without them too, right? So,
I mean, you go back to the Willie Lynch, letters. That was the whole point. You know, the whole point was to demasculate the man, and you know, pretty much. And it's not and like you were saying, it's not a matter of like, you know, women's submission or anything like that. It's really, like you said, it's a balance. Like you got to have both. You know, if you take away one, it's still going to crumble. It's still going to fall. You got to have both. You know, so I think that like that goes all the way back to, so that could be a possibility that a lot of the men were being, you know, being put in jail and prosecuted, and so that they won't have that balance.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But you need that strategery from that black woman though. That black woman's mind, man. You need that thing, man.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Yep. That's
Spirit, yeah, man, that mind, definitely, man, definitely. So, so we watch Fred. He knows all the speeches, Malcolm and Nelson Mandela. You know, my man is studying. I love the sweet scene of him and Deborah when they kissed for the first time. And when we're talking about vilifying, this is a perfect example, because when you think of Black Panther Party and you think of black extremism, or you might think black extremism, but he was the complete opposite. He started a Rainbow Coalition with the Latino gang and with the Appalachian Confederates that would have voted for Trump, you know, like dead serious, you know, and they got unified off of poverty and police brutality. And that's what I mean by, come on, police. Come on, that was your people. That's how this could have happened, man. It's like he's unifying. He's talking to the people, the fringe. He's talking to the fringe of that want to feel included. And so if you just give them power, you know, I feel like if you bring them into this system somehow, I don't know what that. See, then those would have been your best friends, man. He unified Chicago street gangs, black and Latino, and Confederate flag waving white boys. And
when I saw that
20
scene,
years old. Come on.
Yeah, when I saw that scene, that's when I was like, Jesus? like I did not know, man. I didn't know. And
Attorney Jesus. He knew the law too. Attorney Jesus.
I mean, just him, like Jesus alone was a revolutionary. You know,
right?
You know? He wasn't just going after his people. He was going for everyone who's been oppressed, everyone who's been, you know, and then what he was saying to them, and like, oh my goodness, I was like, wow, they really depicted this perfectly.
Right.
And I think that's what they were more afraid of. It's not just because you unify one culture or one nation, that's just one part of the piece. Right. But if you unify all of oppression or all of oppressed people, then that's a threat to the powers that be.
Can't happen. It can't happen. You can't. The power structure can't change, right? That's when no, right? And he said in a fire, and I love how he said that in a fire, water is all of our culture, right? But I would say I would go even further and say it doesn't need to be a fire. You know, it's like if you don't think in terms of scarcity, if you think more abundantly in terms of love, and I'm not saying that he was in any space to think abundantly about anything, right? You know, like he definitely didn't grow up in Germantown, right? But you know, I love y'all, man. But you know, but just to think abundantly, that you know, maybe he a lot of actions honestly would have been different. Now, let's see. Go ahead. Oh yeah, and so Fred gets locked up, accused of stealing ice cream. So, oh yeah, I just wanted to ask a quick question, guys. The rhetoric that he had, it almost made me think about when right now, what's the hashtag with the police, it's stop the police, what is it? Defund the police? Yes. Right. And you know how that pisses people off. I have, like, you know, I've spoken with the opposite demographic, and they'll come to me like, what does this mean? I don't. What he's like, well, is that what it means? You talking about just reallocating funds and stuff like that's cool. Like but in the meantime, they're like, well, my brother is a policeman, so screw you guys, right? Like there's just the slogan. So I just was thinking when he said, kill one pig, a little satisfaction. Kill a few pigs, little more satisfaction. Kill all them pigs,
complete
satisfaction. Bars. No, man, no. I want to listen again, dang it, no.
You did it yourself. You're doing it to yourself, right?
No, man. I want to crack this open, man, because honestly, we know we have those feelings because, I mean, honestly, man, like I said, I have PTSD, man. I've gone through it with the law, and I'm not saying that it's all their fault. I was a knucklehead too, but that's why I'm bringing it up, because I can understand if someone said, kill one black person, a little satisfaction. Kill a couple black people, Right. So how do you feel about that rhetoric?
What you mean? Are they that means they kind of satisfied? I mean,
real satisfied.
they up there. They just salivating. If that's the case,
nah, I feel you, man. I can't even. I'm not even gonna touch that one, man. You can drop the mic on that. I'm gonna change the subject.
And it goes back to what Phil was saying, in the pedagogy of the oppressed. Is it really violence? Like, or is it really, when you're the oppressed and you've been getting killed and they getting satisfied all day, they just, and then when you're, now you're angry. Now you're trying to, is it really wrong? Is it wrong to say, yo, since y'all are killing us, you know what I'm saying? Because remember, their boy just got killed from, the police just killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talking about
took him from the hospital.
Yeah, talking about Jimmy when they took him from they killed him even when he was in the hospital. Yeah. I feel you.
So I mean, what are you gonna feel at that moment?
I feel you, man. I get it. I understand the sentiment. So I'm gonna ask this. So then I'm being devil's advocate just because I'm a hippie roster. I want love and peace, guys. Well, I'm just wondering, in a vacuum, hear me out. In a vacuum,
in a vacuum, you mean in a place?
Yes, exactly, exactly. Be with me. I'm glad you highlighted that, Phil. In a vacuum, you hit me, and I hit you back, and then I'm sorry. In this proverbial vacuum, all right, what you would like to happen is that I hit you, and after you hit me back, it's over with, right? It's like, oh, okay, cool, I get it. Oh, my bad. I didn't realize you were gonna fight back. Okay, and cool. Let's shake hands, right? That it does not happen in reality. What happens in reality is you hit me, I hit you back, I get a bigger gun, you get a bigger gun, then it just goes on and on until somebody wins, right? Versus that's reality. We can be in that reality, or check this reality out. You hit me, I say, what are we gonna do so that this doesn't happen again? Look, everybody just gonna slap me when they see me now. They just be like, he ain't gonna do nothing.
You acting like this man stopped hitting you the first time. He hit you once. Like, I mean, I'm just kidding. This guy over here he's the boxer. Like, wait a minute, I'm pointing which other way. Tyler over here the boxer. What you mean? You talking about this man ain't never hit nobody with a one piece. Like, what you talking about?
That's the knockout king. That's the knockout king right there, man.
There's at least 3 or 4 coming. So you talking you get hit once.
Right. Lamar kept us right, man. Peace to the God. Lamar got us right, man.
Right.
Keep the elbows down, boss. Keep the elbows down.
I would say, like, it'd be great if that could happen where we can just say, well, let's have a discussion about this, like, how can we end this when you could be, the answer that you're afraid of is like, okay, well, if you could just head back to the old cotton fields and take take care of or you could
As
just
long as this system, what you're saying is, as long as this system stays established,
yeah
then yeah, it's all then it's all
and the
good.
thing is, I don't promote violence, because violence do beget violence. Like, that is a fact. You know what I'm saying? You hit me, I'm gonna hit you back a few times. Like, it's not, that's just how it works. You know?
I told you.
But at the same time, like, if and I'm gonna go into this just because it's Judas and the Messiah, the names and stuff, like, going back to Jesus, like, that's what they were, that was the parallel, and like going back to Jesus, and Jesus is saying, like, yo, in order for this to all end, you have to express love first, right? So, like, when you hit me, I turn the other cheek. Why? Because then what are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Like, but someone has to take the beating. That's what stinks about it. Is someone will just have to be the bigger man and say, oh, even though I want to hit you a few times, bro. Oh my goodness. It has to be like, yo, in order for all this to stop, it's got to stop somewhere. Because how all this was built, was built on violence. It was built on, conquering. It was built on, but for all to end, we have to do something opposite, because it's the definition of insanity. Let's keep doing the same thing and keep banging our heads, and expecting a different result. And that's like, that's what we get. I feel like that in order to end it, you're right. I think love needs to be expressed, but I know it needs to be strategically expressed, but it does.
Right. I want to be that weird guy.
You are. Ask, you shall receive.
Yeah. Right. Because even yeah, man. I feel like because when you say the bigger guy, I'm curious, big where, and if you dead, and then somebody's got to take the beating. I feel like we don't watch too many folks that look like us take that beating. And then on top of that, I want to push back, and the folks gonna be mad at me about this one. Where were the Patriots, and where were the Lords, and where were the Crowns when they was at the Chicago chapter HQ? If you're talking about like a popular, yeah, like where were they? Because to me, if we know that everybody in this thing is some level of armor, everybody's armed on some level, but they picking on this one folks, how unified were they? Like how real was that coalition?
Right.
And because it's like, all right, fine, we agree that we have a similar fight, but who's actually finna fight? And you could say like the closest thing we've seen in a while was like, this past summer when like almost everybody, multicultural, multigender, all these folks came out, to support these different rallies. But the question still becomes like, where were they? And then they could have just put their bodies on the line, right? You could have these white boys, the Patriots, just come and stand out there in front of there and be like, look, man, we actually are. All right. But then the question also becomes, what if they pull the tools out on the white boys? Were the white boys gonna move out the way? Or were the Puerto Ricans gonna pull their pistols out? Like, what tactics are we actually going to use? Because if this whole thing is built on violence, then you're not going to get past it without that on some level. Like, the violence has to occur.
Right.
It sounds horrible because you're talking about casualties. But the question becomes then, are you going to keep putting your bodies in front of everything so that you can be the casualty, so that this machine keeps rolling? Because if you just laying down, they're going to keep rolling over you.
Right. And
you don't know when it's going to stop.
Okay. Like I was going to say, that goes to defense, like that protecting the community, going back to that policing. It's like, yeah, this is, if you come to us and you approach us and attack us in a way, then we should defend ourselves. We have the right to defend ourselves. And that's what was so cool about the Black Panther Party. They said, I have a right. I got a right to stand here with my gun. And if anything go down and it's all wrong, I have the right to put you,
like everybody else.
just like everyone else. And it's like, look, I still love humanity. I still love people.
Right.
But whoever comes and attack me and my community, then that's where the violence will happen. But if we're going on the offense, then we're no better than the oppressor, whoever the oppressor is.
Hey Phil, I know you were about to talk. No, you're good. And I mean, and you're right. We definitely don't want to speak too out of terms, but to my understanding, I mean, it's definitely a statement. More than just the legal side of things, it's a statement. These black individuals, they're standing together and bearing arms. I think that said a lot. They embodied black empowerment in a way that we had never experienced before. We had never saw ourselves as Billy Badass. We had never saw ourselves as even remotely being anywhere close to anybody's state capitol with a gun. So I think the statement was definitely a big reason to do it. And talking about the times, I think that it was very easy to feel like public enemy number one if you're a black urban American in the 60s. Watching all of those revolutionaries get killed, and it was a revolutionary time. It was a very vulgar, the Vietnam War was going, they were televising violence, or bloodshed on TV. And I think that without me knowing the specifics of the law and why, when and where to bring guns in, I think that's why they did it. But I also think they overdid it. I think that they should have done it in parts, at specific events, in particular things, not always having it, because then you're just going to give a reason, and all you need, and that's, that was the reason why they went into Fred Hampton's house. That's all they needed to know, was that, there was a suspension of loaded guns, but I'm sure they would have found another reason, right?
But do they need reason that they're going to do it anyway?
Right. Yeah, they would have found another reason. You're right.
Needed a reason for they just needed a reason for everybody else.
Right. So right. Exactly.
Which plays back into media, which is goes back to also what Fred was talking about in that scene, right? Like, politics is war without violence or guns, and then war is and then what is
he said politics is war without violence, and war is politics with violence.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Now we're coming. We got like 15 minutes before it's 2 hours before we get the one. So I'm gonna skim through some parts of the film, and then we can start talking about the crux of what we kind of feel about this, just so we can wrap it up. And again, guys, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening. I just spent a 15-hour night on set, and I came here so head spinning. I love this movie, and I was so looking forward to you guys. I was like, I got to keep it together, man, so I'm not rambling and saying a bunch of crap. So just thank you so much, guys, for listening. This filled up my day. Now I'm about to go work out. When I first came home, I was probably going to go to bed, but thank you guys so much for this. So we Fred Hampton, he goes to jail for 2 to 5 years. I don't know the specific amount of time, because he was accused of stealing a bunch of ice cream. Whatever. So William O'Neill, he gets promoted. And I also think that that's another reason why there was a lot of rats around, just because, again, and there was a lot of space for dissent, because the leaders were always in prison. Maybe if he had a little more time with them, he could have read them, right? Now, I thought it was interesting when William and the other informant head of the security was talking so much junk, man. I killed that rat, blah, blah. It's always the loudest dog with the softest bite, right? It's always the dog. You always gotta watch the cat that's running their mouth, because they terry cloth. That means very soft.
Dang.
For real, man. Nah, so I'm gonna keep going because, like I said, I really want you guys to dig into the meat and potatoes of how you want to exit. So, they talk about the FBI, or they show the FBI stealing his mail from his pregnant wife. The guy had rabble rouser cut on his chest. I was really wondering what that was about. I felt like there was maybe a little bit more to that I was not told, or did not look up. Jimmy gets shot, and then, like you said, they're watching over him so that they can, if he doesn't make it, they'll kill him. Did you hear about them saying that MLK that died in the hospital, and that the doctor said he was alive, and like the sheriff and a couple other people came and just like spit over him, and then they killed him. Like they spit on him and then they killed him. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard that.
I thought the story was that they just didn't. They saw that he was still alive, but they either delayed or did not administer treatment, and so he died. He died from the wound, or they suffocated him. Which one? It was something along those lines.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they just went and killed him immediately or just let him die. But yeah, I did hear something about some spitting, man, that's that hate, man. That's that hate. So let's see. You see, the police are antagonizing the public. And this is what I mean by the Black Panther Party not belonging to any one person or any leader, because the police, they were antagonizing the public because they knew that the Black Panthers had their backing. You know, that's where their power was, just like what Fred Hampton said. And I love that part. You know, they show it a lot in the previews, where he was so amazed when he got out of jail and that they had remade the building, and because everybody loves him and they're just so inspired by him and everything that he does, and to be so childlike at the miracle of the power of people. I just think that's just so admirable. It's really easy to just, especially, again, I'm talking about my profession, when we're on set, it's all these people doing all these Herculean efforts to put this crane up here and this grip and this perfect, put this flag here at this perfect angle so that the actor, when it's here and that, and all this effort is getting put in on a movie. This thing that maybe a couple of people will watch, and I'm just like, man, people are just so awesome, and I love. But this is for a movie. He's doing it. He's watched people do that for him and do it for the movie, and I just loved that performance. I loved that scene where I just felt it from him, where he was just like, man, like, where there's people, there's power, man. Like, that's dope, man. For him to have such a childlike appreciation for the power of people, you know.
Right.
I love that so much. So Judy holds it down. They shoot up their central office in Chicago, and I just want to hearken real quick unto what happened in L.A. Towards the end of the Black Panthers, the real Black Panthers, or in Oakland, excuse me, where they did the same thing, where they shot it up, and they came out waving the white flag, and they made it a hobby to shoot up these offices, man. Like they would just come in and just raid. It was all out war. And with J. Edgar Hoover and when Ronald Reagan became president, these are terrorists. This is the other country, and we're at war. So it was like no knock, going in, handling business. Like, people gotta go. It's like they were sniping. Saying us as black people, but the Black Panther Party, they were sniping them. And that these raids are a perfect example of that. Now, let's see. Love the shot of the dead. Oh yeah, I love that shot where the dead vines are covering that white wall. As William is talking on the phone, with the informant, it's tingling him. This situation is tingling him, and it's taking over him. And I just love that shot so much. But we're gonna go to the so Bobby Seals, J. Edgar was showing pictures and talking about how everything was going well, and they showed a picture of Bobby Seals being tied and gagged, and that was real. They would go up and defend themselves because they understood the law so much. And when Bobby Seals went to court, they were tired of him talking, and they kept holding him in contempt, and he would keep talking, so they tied and gagged him in court. So I mean, this is like medieval stuff, right? You know, this happened a few years ago, man, or a few decades ago, man, and J. Edgar asked Agent Roy about his daughter, like real, her daughter dating a black guy, right? Like what about when she brings home a black guy, right? And he starts because to him, white supremacy is about survival. This is and I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. So she wrote this book called The ISIS Papers, and a lot of people will kind of call her a pseudoscientist. I don't know that far. I would just challenge people to look her up because she is a doctor. But what she said is that because light skin is a recessive gene, that there's an innate feeling of feeling lesser than, as far as like there's an innate feeling of like you'll lose the DNA battle, right? The dominant color gene, and you'll eventually the ethnicity will be gone. So they were saying that this inherited sort of anxiety about it is what will kind of created white supremacy. Is kind of the basis of it. And I just thought that was so interesting when J. Edgar was just poking the agent, just kind of poking him, and just because he's like, yo, do you feel this fear? Do you know what's up at stake? And I'm going to end it because I want you guys to end it. So I'm just going to end my part with when Fred Hampton is challenging us to be a revolutionary, and when those parts of ourselves, he says, I'm high off the people. He's like, those people, when we're in those moments that are moving us, and we want to turn the dial in whatever little parts of our lives that we can do it. The little Fred Hamptons and all of us, I just think that it's when we step out of our comfort zone and we choose not to be fear-based. When we realize that we're here so we can change things. I'm here, and I believe this. I believe in love. I believe that love can conquer all. I believe that everybody can treat each other nice, and we can talk to each other and say things that make our emotions go up here and then go down here and then go sideways, and then I can come and hug you, and we can figure this thing out. And see, y'all, they laughing at me, dog. They laughing at me, dog. I know what you were talking about with Phil, just with us, with that whole idea of turning the other cheek. I completely agree that you don't want to be too nice, but I feel that and you're right in that, would the Latino gang and with the Confederates, would they have sided with us? Would they have fought and died for us? I don't know those questions, but I gotta believe that that it is me being me and expressing me and all of my insecurities and all my stuff, but proudly, man, proudly and strongly and boldly. I felt like that's what I want to take with me more than anything with Fred. I appreciate so much that he thought higher of himself and his race of people. And he said, you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to find a resolution to this thing that is that's beyond any one, I feel like, element. any one singular thing about myself or my party. I felt like I saw those decisions in him even in the movie. And and like I said, seeing William O'Neill's story and seeing the informant and seeing Fred Hampton, the revolutionary, I felt like you got a really good yin and yang of the Black American experience. Yeah, man. So Pally P, you can go first, man. How do you want to sign out with us, man?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that the movie was like like what he said, I am a revolutionary, was a perfect depiction of the whole movie, because like it was the power that was taken from the people, he gave to the people. Like he empowered them to be, hey, you can be pretty much what I got is you can be whatever you want, you can do whatever you want. You just have to get beyond this oppressive situation. And the only way that you can do it is if you do it. If each individual actually becomes a revolutionary in their own way, that's what changes. That's what makes change. It's not controlled by one person, it's not controlled by a group of people. Right? Freedom and revolution is based on each individual person. And he did it in the best way possible. And just kind of going back to what you were saying, that Fred Hampton and William O'Neill were like the perfect example of what it is to overcome fear and what it is to be suppressed by fear. Like William O'Neill was so afraid to die because if he was exposed, he feel like his life was going to be over.
Right.
So they just used that, and that fear, they just kept guiding him along, guiding him along, guiding him along. But you couldn't do anything. You can lock Fred Hampton up, you can beat him up, you could do whatever. But he was not afraid, and he was trying to implement that into everyone. So I think, like, I feel like the I Am a Revolutionary was a great depiction of the whole movie, is that each individual is their own revolutionary, like they're their own change, and that's how you become the change in the world.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Pally P. Ill Phil.
No, I think I agree with all of you, to be honest. Like, and I think this idea, because I'll preface it by saying this: like, love is dope, and so is peace. But I'm always critical in the sense that whose love or whose definition of love am I supposed to live under, and whose idea of peace is being imposed upon me. And then when Pally talks about this, like the individual being revolutionary, like to me that becomes the crux, because who you are, who you really are, like like you don't know it to the fullest extent, and neither does anybody else. And so any outside factors that are imposing upon you what it means for you to be you, that you allow to constrain you, does not simultaneously allow you to be the revolutionary that you ought to be. And so the complex figure that you are, right, is heavily dependent upon your willingness to do violence to anybody else's idea of you. And so even when I talk about like idea of like necessary violence or considering violence as a potential and legitimate option, what I'm talking about is the destruction of a particular system that exerts itself over against people. And so do we want to be able to move in a nonviolent fashion? I think that is ideal, and that's what we would like to see. But when we talk about destroying a particular system, we're also talking about destroying people's epistemologies or the way in which they see the world. And we talked about people will kill you to stay in the matrix or stay in the cave. We're talking about the ways in which we're actually asking people to destroy their own systems that enslave themselves. And as a result of that, you are subsequently going to be faced with violence by the people who embody those systems. And that's why violence subsequently becomes a necessary conversation to have, or a thing to consider, because when you ask people to move beyond the constraints of their realities onto something more freeing, something more liberating, you're now asking them to do violence to themselves. And so it's its own kind of ontological suicide, because you're asking them to die to the very things that they held very captive, or that they feel like gives them a level of sense of certainty inside. And so as a result of that, if that person dies, they don't know what exists beyond that. But I think we're arguing that beyond that is something much more fruitful, something more generative, much more loving. You know, it's a different reality altogether. But the space between here and there is where the violence lives, and that's where the chaos is, and that's where all of the the potential for whatever exists, and that's where the scary part is, the space between, like, it's this just a chasm.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about like this movie being an existence, like and I thoroughly love this movie all the way until the kick dog scene. And I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, yo, what's the worst assassination scene, like this one or Spike Lee's Malcolm X joint? Get right.
Just hanging on her close up was everything. You know, just her close up as the bow bow.
Oof.
So because of what it tells you is like, all right, I am a revolutionary, or you are a revolutionary, and if you embody that very thing, the cautionary tale is this is a potentiality. Like, it doesn't always have to happen, right? Because if we're talking about this fight being something that's never ending, somebody's going to win eventually. Like, another world is going to happen sooner or later.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But until that happens, this is the potential outcome for you putting your life on the line. Right. And so, like, that's the thing nobody wants to watch. Nobody wants to see transition occur that way. Like, we all want to see, like, we all wish that Nipsey got to live to turn into, like, to have a damn cooking show with Martha Stewart. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
yeah, man. We would have loved that show.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, we would have loved like an 80-year-old Malcolm X that would have told us we were doing it all wrong. You know, by just to live long enough to turn into like to turn into something else. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's just a matter of, like, the question becomes on some level, like, what is your transition as a revolutionary, and are you willing to face that, regardless of whether it be your transition internally or your transition to somewhere else, into the space beyond. And so I think that's kind of the sad and harsh aspects that, that this thing forces us to face. So.
Yo, that's beautiful, Phil. Thank you, man. And I love how both of you guys just quoted the God MJ, because y'all both said, if you want to make the world take a look at yourself, you make that change.
Wow.
Man, I'm delirious, guys. I need some sleep. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you so much. This was beautiful, man. I hope you guys were as enlightened as I was from this. And you're going to be seeing them on their individual shows. I'm really looking forward to us diving into more individually, giving them more time as individuals to speak. Thank you so much for chiming in on this Jaguar unification, man. I don't think the three of us have spoke together since I took the helmet off back in the day.
Man, and you've undergone your own metamorphosis, man. If you told me Frank the Thrill,
Frank the Thrill, baby, Thrill.
This is what this guy was gonna grow to be. No, I was like, okay.
Who'd have thunk it, man? Blessings, man. I'm having a ball, man, and I'm glad that you are too. It's so encouraging. It's like, iron sharpens iron, right? Look over on my side, man. See my pack of lions out here killing the game, man. And just so proud of you guys. I know you just made a big move, Phil. And Pally, you're the strongest dude I know, man. That's all I'm going to say. You're the strongest dude I know. My heart's with you, my man, your family. And yeah, guys, I'll be talking to you guys soon. I'm going to, we'll sign out here, but I'll shoot you guys a text soon so we can talk about the next episodes. And yeah, man, that'll be that. That sounds good. Awesome. All right, guys, thanks so much for another awesome episode.
God damn. Hey, man.
I'm glad I could give you that pleasant surprise, my man.
Nah, for real. I opened the door. I was like, what's going on, man? Nah, but this is good, man. Cause we just linked back up on Instagram a while ago, man. And so I try to reach out to folks when they cross my mind, but you know what I mean? It's just
which was, you did hit me at a good place. You hit me at a place where I needed to talk to somebody, somebody that's been there, when we grew up with me and So I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
No, of course, man. It ain't going
Trey,
nowhere.
party.
We in there like swimwear in the summertime, guys. Love you guys, man. Y'all enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy your wedding, Phil. We'll talk soon, okay?
Likewise, man. Y'all be good. Peace.
Welcome to Tootsville.
Find all our content on thenewfilmosophy.com.